Well, as someone who has yet to experience the joy associated with parenthood, I assume that parents never fight about how to raise their child. Or at least that's what I thought was the case. I'm getting some laughter over here from our parent panel, which seems to suggest perhaps I might be a little misinformed. Jason and Marni joining us right now. Thank you for coming in.
Awesome to be here.
So let's talk about this, because growing up, you perceive your parents, you see the fights, you see disagreements and whatnot, but you assume that they're kind of, more often than not, on the same page. That's not necessarily the case, is it?
Not at all. Not at all, right?
No, and I think, I can say, I've really reflected on this because I'm in a situation now where we are co-parenting now.
Correct.
And so my child is 10 years old, and for the first 9 years, I often felt, and I didn't realize this until now, that I didn't have the opportunity to be that full parent. And I think sometimes we don't allow the other parent the space to really be a full parent. And so I'm experiencing that now, where I have to deal with the day-to-day, the food, the studies, all of those things. And if we want to stay up late some night and watch a movie till midnight, we're going to do that. Those things we never did before, and I really stepped up. But I think because I had to, and I'm really proud of that, but I think before, we never really gave each other the room to really be those parents in those moments that we would want to be. Right? We still co-parent well, and the education, the healthcare decisions, and the childcare decisions are all on page, but now I get to do it kind of my way, and I'm feeling really good about that.
I think that we tend to defer to our partner a lot, and we don't really own the parenting role when it's kind of a shared responsibility.
Yeah.
Once we have the opportunity to really interact like one-to-one or one-to-two with our kids, we really take responsibility and accountability for it. That doesn't mean there's not going to be arguments between co-parents or married or whatever, but the biggest thing for me about that is that people take themselves way too seriously. And from my experience working with high conflict families especially, people care way too much about being right than they do about taking care of their children.
But you know what, I think part of that though is when you're going into a relationship, hopefully you're meeting somebody and working and wanting to meet somebody that has some very deeply held shared core values. Methods might be different, but as long as the values are there, as long as your goals are similar, as long as that plan is in place before, then I think it sets it up well.
That's what people don't talk about when they get into the argument.
So
exactly.
Were you caught off guard, perhaps, by the differences that exposed themselves after you guys became parents?
Honestly, from our perspective, I don't think there were that many differences in our goals. It's just I didn't have the opportunity to really be that parent. And quite often we would take breaks specifically where one of us would travel and then provide the opportunity for the other person to just spend that 1 week, 2 weeks, just one-on-one. And it was beautiful. And those were some of the favorite times that I had, those extended times. Now I get that all the time, and I still love it.
I think that what we tend to do is focus too much about the differences in parenting rather than talking about the underlying goals. And every parent wants their children to be happy and healthy and grow up safe. And it's a matter of how do you do that? And there's going to be different opinions on that. And neither one is more right or more wrong unless you're getting into the extreme categories. But we don't have to fight to the death of every single little argument, because it's not going to make that big of a difference. We need to talk more about similarities.
So is talking essentially the best way to reach that conflict resolution? Is it really that simple?
No, I think that some
I get a lot of laughter on this panel tonight.
I think that some people are very verbal, in which case talking is a really helpful way for them to show respect to each other when they don't have the same opinion or perspective on things. Other people aren't quite as verbal, and you might need to be showing, acts of service to each other. There might need to be physical affection or quality time that really reinforces that there's true respect, even though you disagree.
And on that, then, if you're struggling as parents to meet those goals, then you're not intentional in being parents and actually doing the parenting part. If you're too much focusing all of your energy on trying to figure out who's right and who's wrong, while that's happening, the parenting isn't happening. The child will pick up on that.
That's exactly what the kids then see. Right?
Absolutely.
They see mom and dad are just fighting over who's right. And so what are they going to do when they're on the playground with someone that they disagree with? They're just going to start fighting like that.
That's right. Or even worse, take the blame on that they're fighting about me as the child, especially if it's a disciplined situation, right?
Right.
Right? So then they might internalize that this is my fault.
I'm to blame.
Yeah.
I'm the reason mommy and daddy are fighting
Yes.
all the time.
Yes.
Yes. And, you know, sometimes they are, but for a lot of other times, it's really just a matter of holding two different opinions and perspectives that are equally valid as equal.
And negotiating that through as you would in any issue in a relationship, in a healthy relationship,
Yes.
is negotiating those roles and those responsibilities. And when we don't agree, that's part of just having a really healthy relationship. Besides being
But
parents.
that's the key word, healthy. And that's much more difficult and not maybe as pervasive among
So wait,
parents.
we didn't solve the issue? There you go. A little bit of insight into that ongoing battle when it comes to how do you raise your parents, or your parents.
That's
raise
true,
That's a
too.
whole other
That's
conversation.
another conversation for another time. We're going to take a little bit of a break right now. We'll be back, though. We're going to dive into another topic. And how important is it for your child to like your teacher and vice versa? We'll be right back in a second.